I never thought I'd be the one to destroy my own marriage. But after what I discovered that night, I couldn't stay silent. Now everyone knows the truth, and I'm not sure I'll ever feel safe again. I was supposed to be getting ready for a fun night, our high school reunion, but instead, my husband made sure to ruin it before it even started. 2 months ago, I was sitting in a nail salon, getting a simple ballet pink polish and a little TLC for my tired, postpartum feet, when my phone buzzed. It was him, and the message, "Hey, since you still look pregnant and kind of chubby, I think you should skip the reunion. I don't want people thinking I married someone who let herself go." I just froze. We'd been together since high school, through everything, and this is what he sends me. I could feel tears building, no matter how hard I tried to blink them away. The girl next to me, getting acrylics done, noticed. She slid me a tissue and asked softly, "Hey, are you okay?" I couldn't even answer. I just turned my phone toward her so she could see. She didn't hesitate, snatched the phone right out of my hand and hit FaceTime. "Hey, is this Anthony?" "Yeah, I'm here with your beautiful wife." Before she could even finish, he cut her off with a laugh and said, "You look cute. If my wife looked anything like you, we wouldn't have any problems." The entire salon went silent. You could hear a pin drop. She hung up without another word, disgust all over her face. Then the nail tech raised her voice like she was calling an emergency drill. "Ladies, we have a code red." Every single woman in that salon turned to look at me. The lady under the hairdryer, the one getting a lip wax, even the receptionist. The salon owner, Mia, took charge immediately. "Text him. Tell him you're staying home tonight. Nothing else." I typed it out with shaking hands. "You're right. Staying home." His reply came instantly. "Good girl." That was it. The room erupted. The woman getting highlights. She owned one of the biggest handmade dress shops on Etsy and insisted I take the $400 red gown from her store. The brow tech's daughter? A professional makeup artist who worked for the local news station. She cleared her schedule. Someone else offered to watch my baby for the night. The girl who'd FaceTimed him decided she was coming as my +1. 2 more ladies volunteered as backup. Mia locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and announced, "We've got 5 hours to make this man regret his entire existence." And that's exactly what we did. Hair extensions for my postpartum thinning. A spray tan for that glow. Makeup so perfect my cheekbones looked sculpted by angels. They even made me practice walking in heels again, coaching me on my entrance. By the time I slipped into that red dress, shapewear and all, I didn't just look different. I felt different. The reunion was at the downtown Hilton. He was already there, according to his Instagram story. We walked in at 8:30. He was easy to spot, standing with some blonde, hand on her lower back, introducing her to classmates like she belonged there. We followed them into the hallway near the restrooms. The blonde went into the ladies' room, and we went in after her. "Hey, random question," I asked. "Are you here with Anthony?" She smiled. "Yeah, we matched on Hinge 3 days ago. Isn't he cute?" The air went cold. "I'm his wife." Her face drained, then flushed bright red. "Are you serious right now?" She pulled out her phone and scrolled. He'd told her he was single, that he hadn't felt this way in years, that she was the one he'd been waiting for his entire life. Even women who didn't know me, who just wanted to use the bathroom, were furious. "Girl, you're gorgeous," the blonde said, spinning me around. "If I were him, I'd roll out the red carpet for you every morning." She stormed out of that bathroom and went straight to him. The DJ had just turned the music down for announcements. Perfect timing. "You're on Hinge while you have a wife?" she shouted, tossing her drink in his face. "A wife who just had your baby?" The whole place went silent. "You told me you were single, that you were falling for me," she continued. I stepped forward. "We have a baby girl at home, Anthony." People started chiming in. His old English teacher asked if it was true. His ex, Bethany, yelled out that she dodged a bullet. The principal's wife shook her head, saying it was disgraceful. Every eye in that room was on him. He stammered, soaking wet, then bolted for the exit. I danced until midnight with my new salon sisters. The Hinge girl stayed too, and honestly, we hit it off. That's when my phone started buzzing. I half hoped it was my old high school crush across the room. But nope. It was Anthony. His messages were unhinged. I told you to stay home for a reason. You hormonal bleep. First, you won't lose weight, then you humiliate me. I didn't reply, just took screenshots and dropped them in the family group chat, the one with his mom, sisters, and aunts who were all waiting for reunion photos. His mom had just had her fourth baby 6 months ago. I knew the second she read those messages, he was finished. And I was right. That chat exploded in seconds. By 2 a.m., I was at IHOP with half the salon crew, eating pancakes while my phone kept lighting up with messages from his family, most of them calling him disgusting. Only his sister Maria defended him, which sent his mom into an all-caps rage about how no woman deserved to be treated like trash after giving birth. I crashed at Jenna's place around 4 a.m. baby in a borrowed pack-and-play. At 7 a.m., I woke up to my phone vibrating non-stop, 47 missed calls from Maria, and a screaming voicemail about how I'd destroyed their family with my lies. Then, I heard tires screech outside. Anthony. He started pounding on the door so hard the frame rattled, yelling for me to open up. Jenna was already in the kitchen making coffee. She looked at me calmly and said, "Start packing the baby's things. I'll handle him." I grabbed the diaper bag while he kept shouting threats, saying I'd better take back everything I told his family or he'd make my life hell. Jenna cracked the door with the chain still on and told him to leave before she called the cops. He tried to push in. The chain held. Then he saw me holding the baby and lost it. "You're not taking my daughter anywhere," he screamed, reaching through the gap. Jenna slammed the door shut and immediately started recording him while he kept pounding, yelling, and promising to make me regret embarrassing him. Jenna cracked the door open again, phone camera already rolling. Anthony didn't even notice at first. He was too busy screaming about how I was a fat psycho who couldn't handle the truth. That's when it happened. 3 neighbors came out to watch, including Mrs. Smith from 2 doors down. She raised her voice so the whole street could hear. "Should I call 911? Anthony finally clocked all the phones pointed at him, and instantly changed. "Oh, we can talk about this like adults," he stammered, stepping back like nothing had happened. Then he practically sprinted to his car and tore off down the street. Before his taillights disappeared, Jenna was already uploading the footage to her Instagram story. Inside, I felt something I hadn't felt since reading his first cruel text that day, relief. Her apartment smelled like vanilla candles, and she'd ordered Vietnamese takeout while I was asleep. She showed me to the spare bedroom where her sister had already set up a pack-and-play with fresh sheets and even a little mobile hanging over it. The baby fell asleep instantly. I sat there on the bed, just breathing, safe. 3 hours later, my phone blew up. Someone had screen-recorded Jenna's live stream and posted it in our neighborhood Facebook group. The comments were wild. Women I'd never met were sharing their own stories. How Anthony had hit on them at the gym, at the grocery store, even during daycare pickup while I was home with our baby. One woman said he asked for her number at the gas station while her husband was pumping gas. Another said he sent her a DM on Instagram comparing her to hotter women than his wife. Then Derek, Anthony's best friend since middle school, texted me screenshots from their guys group chat. Anthony had been bragging about training me to stay home so he could do whatever he wanted, sharing dating app profiles of other women and asking them to rate them, calling me a 4 at best after the baby, and saying he deserved better. The worst part? Him joking that he'd convinced me losing the baby weight was impossible, so I wouldn't even try. The next day, Linda, his mom, showed up at Jenna's with her own baby strapped to her chest and a bag full of diapers and formula. She hugged me like she was trying to make up for everything her son had done. "I raised that boy better than this," she said, handing me a divorce lawyer's business card. "I already called her. She's expecting you. Whatever you need, whenever you need it, you call me." 2 days later, I was in the lawyer's waiting room with the baby fussing in my lap, trying to fill out paperwork about assets, custody, and grounds for divorce. My hand was shaking as I wrote the words emotional abuse and infidelity. Ms. Rodriguez, tiny, sharp-eyed, and absolutely terrifying in the best way, explained Texas divorce law, community property, and how my evidence was perfect for proving emotional abuse. She said I could get alimony, definitely child support. Then she mentioned the $300 filing fee, and my stomach dropped. I didn't even have that much in my account. Later that day, I tried to buy formula at the pharmacy, and my card was declined. The bank told me Anthony had emptied our joint account that morning. All $8,400 gone right after I'd left the house with Jenna. I had to hand over the last $20 in my wallet. The cashier gave me $3 in change. That meant I had $3 to my name. Back at Jenna's, I was mixing formula when Mia texted me. She'd started a GoFundMe called Help a New Mom Escape Emotional Abuse and attached the reunion video of Ashley throwing her drink in Anthony's face. Within 2 hours, it had $3,000. From salon clients, neighbors, and strangers who shared their own horror stories in the comments. The number kept climbing every time I refreshed the page. On day 3, Ashley sent me new screenshots that made my blood run cold. Anthony had profiles on Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Match, and OkCupid, all made while I was 7 months pregnant. His bio: entrepreneur, no kids, looking for something real. The profile pictures were from our Cancun trip, all photos I'd taken, which meant I wasn't in any of them. At 2 a.m., my mom called, panicked. Anthony was at her house, pounding on doors, kicking over her garden gnome, screaming that I was poisoning everyone against him. Her security cameras caught it all. By the time cops arrived, he was gone. Mom's hands were shaking so badly on our video call, she could barely hold her phone. The next morning, I went to the police station to file for a restraining order. The officer said it would take 2 to 3 days unless there was immediate danger. I had to change the baby's diaper right there, but I was out of wipes. I used paper towels from the bathroom, which made her cry harder. Jenna and I fell into a rhythm. She worked from home while I cared for both babies, her sister dropping off groceries every few days. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight, but I still felt safer than I had in months. Day 5, Anthony took it public. He posted on Instagram that I was mentally unstable from postpartum depression and had kidnapped our daughter, tagging my boss, cousins, and college friends. He claimed he was worried for the baby's safety and just wanted his family back. My boss texted to check on me. She didn't believe him, but HR needed documentation for their records. Another stack of paperwork I didn't have the energy for. Then Linda went nuclear in the family group chat, posting every one of his dating profiles and screenshots people had sent her. His Aunt Teresa admitted she'd suspected something when he skipped Easter for a work emergency. His cousins called him disgusting. His brother defended him, saying I must have driven him to it. 1 week after the reunion, the restraining order was approved. The sheriff served him at work, right in front of his coworkers. He texted me from his work phone, "You made a huge mistake. This isn't over." Miss Rodriguez told me to screenshot everything and not reply. While packing at storage, I found Anthony's old laptop, still logged into his email. My finger hovered over the inbox. It might help my case, but it felt wrong. The baby's cries pulled me away before I decided. Then, more messages came in from women in the neighborhood group. Sarah sent gym screenshots, Anthony offering to be her workout partner because I was too lazy. Jennifer had photos of him sitting way too close at the community pool. Amy forwarded texts from 2 years ago, him asking her out for coffee, saying he was thinking of leaving me. I saved every single one to the evidence folder. 3 days later, I was in the grocery store, just trying to buy formula, when I noticed someone holding up a phone, recording me. It was Maria, Anthony's sister. She was standing right there in the cereal aisle, camera pointed straight at me while the baby slept in her car seat. She marched over and started yelling, accusing me of destroying her brother's life, saying I was just bitter about my baby weight and trying to get revenge. Her voice kept getting louder, and she started edging closer to the baby. People were staring. My hands were shaking. Then an older man stepped between us and told her, firmly, to back off. The store manager came over and escorted her out while I just stood there, frozen. That night, Mia showed up at Jenna's with a schedule. Every single woman from the salon had signed up for shifts to check on me. They brought dinners in disposable containers so I didn't have to worry about dishes. They held the baby so I could shower. They sat with me while I cried over how fast my life was falling apart. Mia's daughter, a paralegal, offered to organize all my evidence for free. She made labeled folders for every incident, taught me exactly how to document things so nothing slipped through the cracks. On day 10, while the baby napped, I finally opened Anthony's old laptop again. His browser history, my stomach turned. He'd been searching Father's Rights Texas and how to prove mother unfit for weeks. There were also apartment listings near his work, from 3 months before the baby was even born. He'd been planning to leave us the whole time. 2 days later, a delivery guy knocked with a massive flower arrangement. The card read, "Please come home. I'll change. Think of our daughter." Before I even realized it, the delivery guy had snapped a picture of me holding them. Rodriguez told me this was proof Anthony knew where I was staying, a clear violation of the restraining order. We filed a report that same day. The next morning at work, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. HR counted 17 calls in one morning from different numbers, all traced back to burner phones bought with cash. My supervisor quietly suggested I take unpaid leave until things settled down. I couldn't afford that, but the thought of Anthony showing up at my job made my skin crawl. 2 weeks after the reunion, there was a knock at Jenna's door. A woman with a clipboard introduced herself as a CPS investigator. The report? Alleged child endangerment. It claimed I was unstable and living with strangers who might hurt the baby. I hadn't showered in 3 days. My hair was greasy, my shirt stained with formula. The baby had a diaper rash from a new brand. The investigator, Mrs. McWilliams, took notes as she walked through the apartment, checked the crib, inspected supplies, and watched me change the baby. She said the baby looked healthy, the home was safe, and the complaint seemed retaliatory. She'd closed the case as unfounded, but told me to keep documenting everything. After she left, I couldn't stop checking the door locks. Every car outside made me jump. The baby started crying more, feeding off my stress. At 3 a.m., Jenna found me at the window, gripping a kitchen knife, staring into the parking lot. She gently took it from me and guided me back to bed. The next day, my cousin sent screenshots from Instagram. Someone had made a fake account with my name and honeymoon photos. The captions read things like, "Missing my husband. Postpartum made me crazy." 60 people had already liked them, including some of Anthony's coworkers. We reported it, but Instagram said removal could take weeks. Rodriguez added it to the evidence file, calling it another piece of the harassment puzzle. 3 days later, Ms. Rodriguez called while I was at Linda's. She'd filed an emergency motion about the fake account, but the hearing was 3 weeks away. In the meantime, Anthony could still legally enter our house. His name was on the deed. That afternoon, I checked the mail and found a stack of credit card statements in my name. 3 accounts I didn't even know existed, all maxed at $6,000. Charges for dating apps, hotels, jewelry, expensive dinners. Going back over a year. That's $18,000 in debt I'd never seen. The credit card company told me to file a police report before they could investigate. The next morning, Linda drove me to the station with a folder of her own. Bank statements showing she'd been sending Anthony money every month for 3 years. He told her I was terrible with money and spending it all on stupid stuff. She believed him. Took 2 hours to file the fraud report. That evening, while Linda was making dinner, the baby looked up at her cat and smiled. Not a reflex smile, a real, gummy, light up her whole face smile. I started sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. Maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't remember any of this. Jenna grabbed her phone and recorded it. Our first happy moment in weeks. 5 days later, I had to go back to the house with 2 police officers to collect more of our things. Anthony had changed the locks, illegal according to my lawyer. The locksmith took 40 minutes to get us in. The nursery carpet was ruined with bleach stains. My wedding dress was shredded on the bedroom floor. Every photo album ripped with my face scratched out. In the baby's room, paint had been poured all over her crib mattress. Her stuffed animals were gone. The officers took photos for the report while I salvaged what little I could. That night, I got a Facebook message from Rachel, Derek's girlfriend. She'd been secretly recording Anthony and Derek for months, worried about what they were planning. She sent me 15 audio files. Anthony bragging about keeping me in line, discussing how to hide money before the divorce. She said she'd testify if needed. I started keeping a notebook, dates, times, witnesses. The evidence pile was growing by the day. But Rodriguez warned me. In family court, emotional abuse often wasn't enough. Judges wanted direct threats to the child's safety. And that scared me more than anything. 2 weeks later, Anthony's company put him on administrative leave. Why? Because someone, I still don't know who, sent the reunion video to HR, and it went viral on LinkedIn. His response? He blasted out a mass email to everyone we knew. Friends, family, coworkers, claiming I was having a mental breakdown and destroying an innocent man. People started forwarding it to me all day. Some messaged support, others awkwardly asked if I needed psychological help. That's when Linda dropped another bomb. She'd hired a private investigator, Marcus. And Marcus? He dug deep. Anthony had 5 dating profiles he'd been using for years during business trips. He had a second phone hidden at his office, a secret P.O. box where he had credit cards sent, and the timestamps? This all started 6 months before our wedding. Exactly 1 month after the reunion, a process server knocked on Linda's door. Emergency custody filing. Anthony was claiming I was mentally unstable and had kidnapped our daughter. His lawyer attached the CPS visit report and spun my leaving the house as abandonment of the marriage. Court date, 2 weeks away. Rodriguez warned me this was about to get ugly. That afternoon, the salon turned into war headquarters. Mia cleared out the back room, set up whiteboards for timelines, and started coordinating social media updates. Jenna was on the phone, calling every single reunion witness. Ashley worked on the GoFundMe, and Linda tapped her church network for character witnesses who'd seen Anthony as a father. By the end of the day, we had evidence boards, printed screenshots, and color-coded folders stacked to the ceiling. 3 days later, Rachel, one of the stylists, pulled me aside. She had a voice recording from last year's company Christmas party. Anthony's voice, drunk, talking to Derek, saying I had trapped him with a baby, and that he'd trade up once the kid was born for someone younger who didn't let herself go. Derek laughed, called me the practice wife, and Anthony said he was just waiting for the right time to leave. My hands shook so badly I dropped her phone. Rachel just rubbed my back while I tried to catch my breath. The next morning, I went to the public library and spent 6 hours researching Texas custody laws. Right of first refusal, supervised visitation, guardian ad litem appointments. Knowledge started to feel like armor piece by piece, even as my eyes burned from staring at statutes. The librarian kept bringing me water and snacks after she saw me crying over legal documents. On day 35, Linda picked me up and taught me basic car maintenance in her driveway, how to check the oil, change it. She told me Anthony never learned because he expected other people to do everything for him. We talked about raising boys versus girls, and she admitted she'd failed with Anthony, but promised she'd do better with her new baby. 2 days later, Anthony's lawyer sent over a settlement offer so insulting, Ms. Rodriguez actually laughed out loud. I'd get the baby, but he'd keep our house. No alimony, even though I'd been a stay-at-home mom. We'd split his debt equally. Rodriguez warned me trials were expensive. The GoFundMe had stalled at $8,000, but I couldn't stomach that deal. So I doubled down. I started posting everything about my daily routine with the baby. Every feeding, every doctor visit, every milestone, all time-stamped and geotagged. People I'd never met were sharing my posts, tagging lawyers who might help pro bono. Day 40, Anthony showed up at the baby's 4-month checkup, claiming father's rights to her medical info. When the doctor refused without my consent, he lost it so badly security had to escort him out. It went in the medical record. The receptionist even gave me a copy of the security footage on a USB. Rodriguez filed subpoenas for his phone records, dating app data, and 3 years of credit card statements. The legal bill hit $5,000 that week, and Linda quietly wrote a check. "Consider it my apology for raising him wrong," she said. Still, every night I had the same dream, walking into the reunion, seeing him with Ashley, wondering if maybe I should have stayed home like he told me. Jenna shut that down quick. "Even if you had, he still would have been cheating. He still would have left. You just would have found out later." 6 weeks after he filed, we walked into the custody hearing. Anthony, in a brand new suit, had 5 guys from his gym testifying what a devoted family man he was. Even though none of them had ever met me or the baby, I had 50 pages of documentation, 12 witnesses, including his own mother, and boxes of evidence. The judge reviewed everything. Anthony kept trying to interrupt until she cut him off. Then she dropped the order, custody evaluation $3,500, split between us. Anthony smirked. He knew I couldn't afford $1,750. And then the real blow, temporary joint custody starting immediately until the evaluation was done. My stomach dropped. My 3-month-old was about to spend nights at his place. 2 hours later, Mia had already posted the evaluation fee fundraiser on the salon's Facebook page. By the next morning, they'd raised over $2,000, enough to cover my half. The local news picked it up as a community coming together segment. Day 45 came, my first overnight without her. I packed extra formula, extra diapers, her favorite stuffed elephant. Jenna stayed over with knitting needles to keep my hands busy. I made half of the ugliest scarf you've ever seen and cried through 3 boxes of tissues. When he brought her back the next day, she was still in yesterday's clothes, crying from hunger, with the worst diaper rash I'd ever seen. He stood there accusing me of neglect. I took photos of everything, even the empty formula bottle, and called the pediatrician to get it all documented. 3 days later, the custody evaluator, Dr. A. Park, showed up at my apartment. 3 hours straight, she interviewed me. Every question was like peeling back a layer. She asked about Anthony's role during my pregnancy, the birth, those first fragile months. I showed her every receipt, crib, car seat, clothes, all bought by me. I pulled up screenshots proving I went to every doctor's appointment alone, and even during my delivery, he was on dating apps. She took notes on her laptop, asked to see the baby's room, her play space, where she slept. The next week, she made a surprise visit to Anthony's apartment. No crib, no baby supplies, just a still-sealed pack-and-play shoved into a closet. The fridge, beer, old takeout, and nothing for a baby to eat. He tried telling her I'd sabotaged him by not giving him supplies. She didn't even respond, just kept writing. Around day 52, Rachel called me out of the blue. She came over with 3 other women from Anthony's circle, and they brought evidence. Recordings, screenshots. They called their boyfriends the Brotherhood of Misogyny. For 5 years, these men had traded tips on controlling women, keeping them insecure. One woman even had audio of her boyfriend bragging that Anthony taught him how to make me feel worthless after giving birth. They gave me copies of everything, said they'd testify. They were done protecting these men. 2 days later, I ran into James, a guy from high school, in the Target baby aisle. He'd heard what was happening and told me I deserved better. He was sweet, until I noticed his wedding ring. He wished me well and walked away, and I stood there thinking about how different my life could have been with someone decent. That same week, Anthony's company finally fired him. The LinkedIn video had exploded, and now multiple women from his office had filed harassment complaints. He went on Facebook, ranting about how I'd ruined his life and threatening to take full custody now that he was unemployed and a stay-at-home dad, as if he'd ever actually cared for the baby. Ms. Rodriguez filed contempt charges for violating the restraining order, destroying my property, and committing financial fraud. She warned criminal charges might follow, but that could make him more dangerous. 3 days later, she called me into her office, slid a document across the desk, and I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe. Anthony was asking me for spousal support. because I'd destroyed his career and now he needed alimony to survive. The laughter turned into tears. Ms. Rodriguez handed me tissues and reminded me, abusers love flipping the script to play the victim. Meanwhile, Dr. Park's investigation was relentless. She interviewed daycare workers, who confirmed I handled every single drop-off and pickup. The pediatrician showed records proving I was at every appointment alone. Neighbors told her about seeing Anthony leave for work trips that lined up perfectly with dating app activity and hotel charges. Linda visited me one afternoon with old photo albums from Anthony's childhood. Birthday party tantrums, screaming at his sister for touching his toys, meltdowns when he didn't win a game. I gave him everything, she admitted. Never made him face consequences. And now, I created this. Then Anthony's new lawyer sent me a cease and desist letter, threatening to sue for $100,000 over defamation because of my social media posts. Ms. Rodriguez just smirked. Truth is an absolute defense. Let him try. Still, my hands shook. The contempt hearing came fast. Anthony stood there insisting every violation was a misunderstanding and that I was just vindictive. The judge flipped through the evidence. Destroyed clothes, restraining order violations, fraudulent credit accounts, and ordered him to attend anger management. From now on, only supervised visitation. His first visit? A disaster. The supervisor documented that he spent the entire hour scrolling his phone while the baby cried, reaching for me. He muttered about how I'd turned everyone against him. The supervisor wrote down every word. When the hour was up, she practically leapt into my arms. Anthony stormed out without saying goodbye. After that news story aired, women came out of nowhere. 43 in total. From 3 gyms, 2 coffee shops, even mothers from the prenatal classes I'd attended. We made a private Facebook group, swapped screenshots, stories, and realized he'd used the exact same pickup lines and patterns with all of us. While packing, I found our wedding album stuffed in the back of the closet. The bride in those pictures. So young, happy, trusting. No idea what was coming. His smile. Now I could see it, predatory, fake, calculating. I kept one picture. Me with my girlfriends, laughing, full of hope, and threw the rest away. 2 weeks later, Dr. Park's custody evaluation came in. She recommended sole custody for me. Supervised visitation only for Anthony. Mandatory therapy. She wrote that he showed narcissistic traits and no genuine parental bonding. Anthony's lawyer tried to request a second evaluation. The judge shut it down. Court date set for final custody hearing next month. When the judge denied his request, Anthony stood up and stormed out of the courtroom. His own lawyer chased him down and minutes later, came back in alone. He told the judge he was withdrawing from the case. He didn't represent people who lied about evidence. Anthony was now representing himself. Rodriguez just looked at me and said, "Good. He'll only dig himself in deeper." The next morning, my phone rang. It was Ashley, screaming before I could even say hello. She'd found Anthony on 3 different dating apps, using random baby photos he'd pulled from Google, calling himself a devoted single dad, looking for someone to help him heal after his ex-wife abandoned them. She screenshot everything, then made a Twitter thread exposing him, complete with side-by-side comparisons of the stolen baby photos and his fake profiles. By the 6-hour mark, it had 50,000 retweets. People were dragging him on LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. Comment after comment calling him a pathetic liar. And then Marcus, the PI, called with something even worse. Apparently, Anthony had been married before. In college. For 3 months. It ended in an annulment when she filed a restraining order against him for stalking and harassment. She reached out through Marcus to say she wished someone had warned her, and she'd gladly testify. 3 days later, Mia organized a huge fundraiser at the salon called Support Survivors. They raised $15,000 for my legal fees. Anthony showed up outside with a cardboard sign. Mob mentality destroyed my life. The police had to drag him away while the local news cameras rolled. His family saw it. Linda called me in tears. They were staging an intervention. Sisters, aunts, Even his 80-year-old grandmother wrote a letter to the judge describing how manipulative and cruel he'd been since childhood. That's when Anthony completely snapped. He sent an email to everyone in my contact list. My boss, my relatives, old college friends, attaching intimate photos from our marriage and claiming I was mentally ill and had turned his family against him. Ms. Rodriguez filed criminal harassment charges that same day. My boss called within minutes, saying HR had seen it and the company was giving me paid leave and a security escort for when I returned. She told me she'd escaped an abusive marriage 20 years ago, and the whole company stood with me. For the first time in weeks, I took the baby to the park. She giggled at every dog, reached for flowers. Other moms smiled knowingly. One handed me a coffee without saying a word. At the harassment hearing, Anthony's college ex testified over Zoom. Same patterns: love bombing, isolation, financial control, escalation when she tried to leave. The judge's face hardened with each word. Verdict: criminal harassment proven. Permanent restraining order. Anthony ordered to pay $25,000 in damages. He screamed about conspiracies and reverse sexism until the bailiffs dragged him out. Meanwhile, Derek dumped Rachel after she exposed those recordings, and she moved in with Jenna. Suddenly we had this little makeshift household of 2 women who'd taken down toxic men, while our babies played on the living room floor. 3 weeks later, mediation day came. I walked into the cold conference room. Anthony was already there with his lawyer, looking smug. The mediator began explaining the process, but Anthony cut her off. He leaned forward, smiling like a predator. He said he'd forgive me for everything if I dropped the custody case and came home like nothing happened. The mediator froze mid-sentence. His own lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into his chair. Anthony kept talking. How I was hormonal and confused. How I needed his guidance to be a good mother and wife again. The mediator reminded him there was a criminal conviction and restraining order. He waved it off as misunderstandings. She closed her folder and noted bad faith participation, while he rambled about how everyone was against him. 2 days later, I went back to work part-time. My desk was covered in sticky notes with hearts and messages of support. The bathroom stall became my pumping station 3 times a day, where I'd sit there, machine humming, thinking about how far my life had veered from what I'd imagined. The night before the final custody hearing, I couldn't eat. The baby wouldn't sleep, just clung to me like she knew something big was coming. By 9 p.m., my apartment was full: Jenna, Rachel, Mia, Linda, and Ashley, all there not to talk about court, just to be there. We sat on blankets with the babies, not leaving until after midnight. Jenna stayed on the couch in case I needed anything. Morning came too fast. I threw up twice before getting into the conservative outfit Rodriguez had picked. Anthony was already in the courtroom when we arrived, his parents with him, but Linda and his dad sat on my side. He had a stack of printed papers from some men's rights website. Rodriguez had 57 pieces of evidence in labeled folders, 14 witnesses, and neighbors ready to testify. The room filled with the salon women, Miss Bradley from the reunion, even the blonde who'd thrown a drink in his face. The judge reviewed the custody evaluation: narcissistic tendencies, lack of parental investment, the harassment conviction, the credit card fraud. Anthony tried to object like he was on a TV drama. The judge threatened him with contempt. When it was my turn, Anthony cross-examined me himself. He asked about my postpartum weight, if I was still fat, how long I planned to breastfeed, if my mental state was stable enough for parenting. Rodriguez objected to every question. The judge finally cut him off, telling him he was making his own case worse. Then Linda took the stand. Her voice cracked as she said her son was unfit to parent, that she'd only seen him with the baby 3 times, each time ignoring her cries while he scrolled on his phone. Anthony exploded, screaming she was dead to him. Security moved in, and the judge ordered him out for the rest of the proceedings. 30 minutes later, the verdict came. Sole legal and physical custody to me. Supervised visitation for him once a month, pending parenting classes and therapy. Child support based on his real income. He covers all my legal fees. Restraining order extended for 3 years. The judge called it one of the clearest cases she'd seen, her only concern being the child's safety. They brought Anthony back in for the ruling. He lost it, throwing papers, screaming about feminist conspiracies. Security dragged him out while the baby cried from all the noise. The judge added a psychological evaluation before any visitation could even start. Outside, his new lawyer swore they'd appeal. Rodriguez just smiled. The appeals court will see the same evidence. The salon women surrounded me in a massive hug as the local news interviewed Mia about community support for women leaving abuse. Victory felt strange, heavy, but also like breathing fresh air for the first time in years. 1 week later, I was finally alone with my daughter for the first time since all of this began. No more court-appointed supervisors hovering in the background, scribbling notes while we ate breakfast. No one watching me change her diaper like it was evidence for trial. Just us. That first morning, we walked to the park at 7 a.m. She reached for every single flower we passed, like she could feel it too. The freedom. Her afternoon nap happened right on schedule, 1:30 sharp, and for the first time in months, I didn't spend it jumping at car doors or double-checking the locks. That night's bath time turned into a splash war with her new rubber ducks. She laughed so hard she got hiccups. Linda started coming by once a week, just an hour, to help with laundry or groceries. She told me she'd started therapy, finally unpacking how she'd enabled Anthony for years. We were both trying to build something better from the broken pieces we'd been handed. Mia's GoFundMe finally closed at $47,000. After paying Miss Rodriguez and court costs, there was enough left for a deposit and first month's rent on a tiny apartment downtown. It was smaller than our old guest room, but there was no trace of Anthony in the walls, no cologne clinging to the closets. 2 weeks after the verdict, the court scheduled Anthony's first supervised visitation at a family center. I got there early, baby dressed in her yellow sundress covered in daisies. The supervisor waited with us for an hour, but Anthony never showed. She wrote it in her report while I took my daughter to the park instead. That day, she pulled herself up on a bench and took 3 shaky little steps before plopping on her butt. I caught it on video but kept it just for us. The next month, Anthony's lawyer filed an appeal. It was denied in less than 2 weeks. Derek stopped hanging out with him after Rachel dumped their whole brotherhood group chat on Facebook. The little circle of toxic men they'd built completely collapsed once consequences hit. Anthony moved back in with his parents and got a job at a used car dealership off the highway. For months after everything started, I walked into the salon for my first real haircut. Mia refused to let me pay. The whole crew was there even on a Tuesday morning. Ashley's new guy was sending her flowers at work. Jenna had been promoted to regional manager. Rachel was in therapy. We were all so different from the day I'd first walked in crying over Anthony's text. A month after the verdict, I got a notice. Anthony hadn't paid a dime of child support. Rodriguez filed for wage garnishment immediately, and within a week, his paycheck was getting docked. He texted from some new number calling me vindictive and life-ruining. I blocked it without replying. One random Thursday morning at breakfast, the baby reached for me and said, "Mama," clear as day, yogurt dripping down her chin. I cried into my coffee and sent the video to Linda and the salon group chat. Within seconds, my phone blew up with 30 heart emojis and screaming voice notes. At her 15-month checkup, I ran into James from high school with his wife and their son. She was warm, kind, even invited us for a playdate. There was no tension, no lingering what-ifs. Just 2 parents talking about naps and teething while our kids played with blocks. Proof there were good men in the world. I'd just chosen the wrong one and stayed too long. 6 months after the reunion, I sat at my tiny kitchen table filling out preschool applications while the baby napped in her crib. My phone buzzed. The salon group making plans for a girls' night at a new wine bar. Outside my window, life moved on. People walking dogs, carrying groceries, living. On my counter sat a manila envelope with the signed divorce papers, ready to mail. This was freedom. Not fireworks, not champagne. Just quiet mornings and ordinary afternoons without anyone making me feel small. The baby monitor showed her stirring. I went to get her, thinking about lunch. Maybe another walk to the park. No angry texts, no eggshells, no crying in bathroom stalls. Just us, figuring it out one day at a time, building something better than what we left behind.